Which Bioshock has the best story? It could be anyone. Except for you, Bioshock 2, you're out. Which Bioshock has the best story? Bioshock 1 or Bioshock Infinite? You have to respect just the foundation that the first Bioshock sets, and as an individual, I'm a Rapture guy. I like Rapture a lot. A little more than Columbia. I'm just saying it. The vibe of Columbia is top notch. Don't get me wrong, but just Rapture, it's so unique. I love that horror aesthetic, that creepy vibe with the splicers. Big Daddy, oh baby, Big Daddy's a monster. Little sisters, all of that stuff is sick, and it's strange because each Bioshock, I think, does something way better than the other one. Heroes or villains, what are you here for? If you want heroes, Bioshock Infinite slaughters the first one because there's really not a fun character for you to vibe with in the first game. Of course, there is Atlas, but like, is there really? And I'm not really a fan of like the main character not talking. I'm fine, I don't have to see him, a la Booker DeWitt, but by far I prefer the vibe of having a character that speaks with Elizabeth in the second game. That makes the game so much better. It makes a lot of those quieter moments a lot more engaging and interactive rather than you're just walking around listening to audio tapes, kind of like how it is in the first game. But if you're talking bad guys, antagonists, good old jerks, look no further than the first game. Again, this game slaughters the second game when it comes to villains. Andrew Ryan, legendary. Frank Fontaine. Andrew Ryan, there is no Atlas, kid. Bad guys way better in the first game, and I think if I had to pick between the two, I love them to death. I'd probably give the edge to having the good guys. Let's talk about the actual story itself, though. I think that the first game, it's one of those things that you have to give it credit for, like I said, setting a foundation, for being revolutionary, for inspiring. It is a very unique story, and one of the best parts about it is uncovering all of this stuff, all of this lore with Rapture. That stuff is super cool. You have that too in Columbia, but again, personally, I prefer the Rapture stuff more. You have the Latouche twins in the second game, and they are phenomenal, one of the best parts of the game. And again, I think they kind of smack Tenenbaum when it comes to like side characters, but the lore of Rapture is so rich. Everything with the big daddies, with the little sisters, that is incredible. The plot twist at the end, one of the best I've ever seen in any game ever, and you still get a pretty decent story of corruption and greed and selfishness in Rapture. The second game is really cool, and I love what they do with Booker and Elizabeth, but I will say the ending is a little messy for me. I understand it now because I've seen countless like YouTube explanations and things like that, but I don't think you should have to do that in order to understand a story. I think if you play it through and you don't really understand what's going on, what happened, that is completely valid, and you can't really chalk that up to like user error. So if we're not talking about the whole overall game, right? If we're just talking story, that's a big difference, because I think for me personally, I like the first game a lot more because of the aesthetic and things like that, because of some of these side missions, the creepiness factor, and while you can factor the lore into certain things here, I think overall I would give the edge as far as story goes to Bioshock Infinite. And that is because they have a lot stronger protagonist. Jack, he is, again, not a joke, just a vessel to get to Andrew Ryan, and that's really all he is. There are some phenomenal moments in that game, don't get me wrong, but you can't beat that connection of Booker and Elizabeth together. Having them together, it adds so much more tension and emotion to the scenes that they go through. Rather than the first game, we don't really feel any connection towards Jack because he doesn't say anything. We know nothing about him. It is kind of used to help the twist at the end, but me personally, I do think Bioshock Infinite is slightly better because of Booker and Elizabeth. Songbird's great too. Did I shout out Songbird? I did. Also, I wouldn't say Bioshock Infinite's without fault. There are some other messy moments in the game, a few downtimes that are kind of forgettable. I play the game and I'm like, oh yeah, that happened. Still though, they're both phenomenal games, both in like my top 10. Give me 2 more games. What story's the best? Let's do it.